Hello and welcome to the first edition of the Gerrim Onside Podcast, hosted by myself, editor Nathan, and co-hosted by my genial frenemy from across the other side of the river, Mr. Ia Judson. Hello, Ian.
Hello there, Nathan. Hello, everybody who's actually signing up to watch this.
Yeah, I'm not sure what you've done to deserve it, but welcome anyway. Signing up for half an hour to an hour's worth of listening to me and Ian drone on. It's you must be a masochist, but welcome anyway.
Yeah.
So
all of life is here.
All of life is here. The red and white side and the black and white side. There's no in between, is there?
Yeah.
So we've just gone past round 19 of the Super League game. Where have those 19 weeks been and gone to? Because it seems like only yesterday since the season started for me.
Yeah, it's one of those seasons, isn't it? It's just there's so many surprises. You can't, you can't predict anything at the moment, because there are so many shocks, that are happening. For instance, we had a few over the weekend, didn't we? Like us going and beating Wigan in the way that we did, and Castleford beating Warrington, and it's just been one of those seasons, and I love this sort of a season where you can't predict anything. We've been doing our predictions every week, haven't we? And we're doing okay, both of us, on it. But there's certainly been some funny weekends, and there's been sort of plenty of shocks and surprises and twists and turns, and I'm sure that there's going to be a lot more yet.
Yeah, definitely. It definitely feels like the final table is starting to take shape, and how the table's going to look in 8 to 9 weeks finishes.
It's getting there, isn't it? But again, we can't predict anything. I mean, at the moment, Rovers are 4 points clear at the top because they've been the best team so far this year. However, we don't, I mean, they were saying that the top 5 look pretty comfortable, except I wouldn't say that so much now, because now we're only 3 points behind St Helens, and the way St Helens, they're so erratic at times, as they showed on Thursday night against Lee. They're so erratic. I could see either Hull or Wakey catching St Helens and overtaking them. I think Saints will be in the playoffs, but we can't be sure of that, can we? It's just the way that it's all shaping up. I think, for a while there, everybody thought, the top 2, it's going to be Wigan and Rovers in whichever form, and then the rest chasing after them. But it's, the rest are still chasing Rovers and Wigan, but it's not the absolute done deal that a lot of people seem to think it was for quite a while, is it, really?
No. Rovers have pulled back to 4 points in front, and we've also got that nice cushion of the points difference, which I think is worth at least another point. So you would say that Rovers are in the box seat for the League Leaders Shield, but at the moment you can't rule out Lee overtaking Wigan into second place, because they're really starting to roll now, and Wigan are looking quite lackluster at the moment without Bevan French. So you never really know. I would quite like to see a Rovers and Lee grand final, because then you're at least guaranteed a brand new winner of Super League. But as you said, it's almost impossible to predict at this stage.
Well, I mean, that's it, isn't it? And I mean, Wigan, we know they'll do what they need to do when they need to do it. And I shudder to say, I hesitate to say, I still think that they will be champions come the end of the season, come the big dance at Old Trafford. However, like I've said, it's not that done deal that it maybe has been before. The last few years, they've been completely dominant, haven't they? And they've deserved it. And we know that they will do what they need to do. But at the moment, I would say, given Rovers the previous few weeks before the win at Catalan, which I think that'll be important, I would say that Lee are the team to watch. They're the team who are looking at it as an outsider. They're the ones that are timing it the way that Wigan do. That we've seen Wigan do so many times, and we've seen St Helens do it, and we've seen Leeds do it. They time it at the right time, and at the moment, I think Lee are that team that are timing it at the right time for the moment. And they could eat. Yes, I could definitely see them in the grand final.
Yeah, I think the one drawback to having Lee in the grand final, and God forbid even winning it, would be Derek Beaumont, because I think he would be insufferable if they made the grand final.
I've got a lot of time for Derek. I like Derek. Even the tirade that he had towards us last year, I just think he's good for the game, because he'll go on. I do a podcast called The Final Whistle with a community called SuperLeagueRaw.com, and he's gone on there a few times and been talked like he doesn't think of himself as a chairman who's above and beyond everybody else like so many of them seem to think. He's one of the lads. And he's a breath of fresh air like that. Yeah, he can do some daft things. He can say some stupid things, but then again, we're all capable of that, aren't we?
Yeah.
But, Derek, if Lee won the grand final, he'd go mad. Like he went mad when they won the Challenge Cup in 2023. But I mean, could you really blame him? I mean, for the amount of, passion that he has for Lee Leopards and what he's done for that club, take from where he took them from and where they are now, because they're one of the very few clubs that are actually making a profit, thanks to his business acumen, I think he's a really good example for the sport in some ways. Yeah, he's a really bad example in other ways, but in a lot more ways, he's a really good example, and I think that can't really be ignored. But yeah, getting back to the nitty gritty, like I say, Lee are the team that I think are timing it just right at the moment. I hope they're not getting it completely right, because we're playing them in a few weeks' time again at the MKM. But at the moment, they seem to have just got everything together and they know exactly what they're doing. And, like I said, they're reminding me of the teams of Wigan, Saints, Leeds. When they've won this before, they've all started a run at some point later in the season, haven't they? And that just seems to be what Lee are doing at the moment.
It is also worth noting the interesting fact that Wigan have now lost as many games so far this season as they did in the entirety of 2024. So that's an interesting little factoid for us. I'm going to look at the results from this past weekend then. So we'll start for the Super League. Started off St Helens 4, Lee Leopards 16. That was at the Totally Wicked Stadium. Huddersfield Giants 10, Wakefield Trinity 46. Leeds Rhinos 42, Salford Red Devils 6. Wigan Warriors 12, Hull FC 32. Thanks for doing us a favour again.
You're welcome. Again. We're going to start calling these favours in at some point,
I'm sure you will. Catalans Dragons 6, Hull KR 34. Castleford Tigers 20, Warrington Wolves 14. Down under in the NRL, we had the Dolphins beating the North Queensland Cowboys 43-24. Cronulla Sharks 31, Sydney Roosters 18. Penrith Panthers 30, South Sydney Rabbitohs 10, Canberra Raiders 40, Parramatta Eels 16, Canterbury Bulldogs 20, St George Illawarra 18, Melbourne Storm 16, Manly Sea Eagles 18, West Tigers 21, Gold Coast Tigers 20, Newcastle Knights 15, and the New Zealand Warriors 20. That was an interesting game. I watched the last 10 minutes of that. It was a edge of your seat sort of last 5 minutes. That for the women in the Women's Super League, St Helens 80, Lee Leopards 0, Warrington Wolves 0, Wigan Warriors 80. So both sides of that famous derby doing quite well there. York Valkyrie 58, Barrow Raiders 0, Leeds Rhinos 54, Huddersfield Giants 12. Down in the Championship, Bradford Bulls 28, Oldham 12, Toulouse Olympique 24, Featherstone Rovers 22. Sounds like an interesting game there in France. Batley Bulldogs 16, Halifax 18, Sheffield Eagles 6, London Broncos 48, Widnes Vikings 16, Doncaster 20, and York Knights 26, Barrow Raiders 12, taking the Knights back to the top of the Championship. And finally, in League One, we've got Dewsbury Rams 26, Swinton Lions 6, Gould Vikings, the new kids on the block 26, Keighley Cougars 12, Newcastle Thunder 0, Rochdale Hornets 60, Whitehaven 8, Workington Town 22. So that leaves the Super League then, with Hull KR sitting on top of the table where they belong, on 32 points.
You just couldn't resist that, could you?
No, it was right there. I just had to say it. So we've got Hull KR on top of the table on 32 points. Just below them in second, the Wigan Warriors on 28. 1 point behind them in third, the Leeds Leopards on 27 points. Leeds Rhinos are in fourth on 26. St Helens in fifth on 24. And rounding up the top six, Hull FC on 21 points. A close top six there, a very close top six. Just outside the top six, we've got Wakefield Trinity in seventh on 20 points, just a point behind Hull FC. And then 2 points behind them, we've got Warrington Wolves in eighth on 18. Catalan down in ninth on 12 points, so a lot of ground to make up there. Castleford down in 10th on 10 points. Huddersfield 11th on 6. And Salford, of course, with their 2 wins making 4 points. So do we think that bottom 3 will remain unchanged for the rest of the season then?
Yeah, I mean, they might swap places a bit between themselves because they're a bit close to each other, aren't they? But, I don't think... I think those who are in the bottom 3 will remain in the bottom 3, yes. But who knows?
It's hard to see.
Like I say, it's one of those seasons.
Yeah, it is. I think you underestimate Castleford at your peril, as they showed against Warrington this past week. They've got the ability to shock a few. Huddersfield have looked a bit lacklustre all season, I think, and Salford, of course, are in the mire for many different reasons. But they had a good positive win against Castleford the other week. I do struggle to see where their next win comes from, if at all, this season. But send our best wishes to the supporters and players.
They might win their next home game against some little team that they're playing.
Some little top of the table team.
Yeah, they might beat them. Who knows?
Stranger things have happened. Yeah. So the big news out of the RFL this week, Ian. Nigel Wood is back on board as the permanent chairman of the RFL. Do you have any thoughts on that?
If you keep going over the old pages, you'll never finish the book. It's as simple as that. I don't think it's a good idea. I think the Rugby Football League, I mean, they do the best that they can, don't they? We've got to give them credit for that. But they seem to lurch from one problem to another. And I think they need fresh brains. I think they need fresh ideas. And Nigel Wood, he's a steady pair of hands, isn't he? But he's not going to give them that fresh injection of ideas that it needs. I don't think. He might surprise me. We're saying about this season being such a big surprise all the way along, and that could stretch to the powers that be. But like I say, if you keep going over old ground, you're looking at the same angle for the same problems. And I think, Nigel Wood, we know what we're getting with him. And they say better the devil you know than the devil you don't. But we'll have to wait and see what we will have to see what he comes up with. But I personally, I would just prefer to see somebody new, completely new, with fresh ideas in the job. To give the Rugby Football League a new direction, because the Rugby Football League, it's our governing body. It's what we're all supposed to look up to, and it needs fresh impetus and it needs fresh ideas. And Nigel Wood, he's done some very good things for the game previously, but those ideas that he came up with before, they're now the tired old ideas that that need to be chipped on and replaced. And we could do with somebody different, I think, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, it's sort of universally acknowledged that this is a pivotal time for the sport, with the strategic reviews due to come back this month. So it's an interesting choice that they've gone back to Nigel Wood. I was interested in reading in the League Express, in today's League Express, that the only team that voted against Nigel Wood was Hull FC, surprisingly enough. Well, I'm not sure whether that's a surprise or not, but he was voted in more or less unanimously, apart from Hull FC. And it is a bit strange that he's got such unanimous support amongst a group of teams who were getting rid of him only 6 years ago. Not too long ago, anyway.
Yeah, it certainly wasn't long, was it? I mean, that's the thing. How he's done that, I don't know. I mean, there's the link with him and the Bradford Bulls, isn't there? And, I would say controversy has surrounded him rather a lot, hasn't it, in previous years? And, that's another reason why I'm not sure about this, because he's divided opinion before, and it's like I say, he's done some good stuff, but I think that people remember a lot more of the bad stuff, and it's just, to me, it's just going back over old ground again. And I would have hoped that the Super League clubs, the chairman, and not just the Super League clubs, all of the clubs, they would all think, well, hang on a minute, do we really want to go there again? Or do we want some fresh ideas? But I mean, I'm just one voice, aren't I? And I can see why he's been reinstalled, but I can also see why certain people might not be happy about it as well.
I mean, there's one thing for certain, he's got a lot of big decisions coming down the tracks, because I've got down to talk about the structure of Super League, which is a bit in the air at the moment. So he's got that to decide as to whether we go up to 14 teams in 2026 or whether they keep that can on the road.
This is the thing for me, is we're going over this old ground again, but this is a really important few months for the game. We've got the restructure to do again. We've also got the Ashes. It's first time in over 20 years that the Ashes has been played for. It needs to be it needs to be on the biggest platform, and it needs the right person in charge to really push that narrative and really sell the Ashes to people. And I mean, I know we've sold out Game 2 and Game 3, and of course Wembley, I think it's about half full, isn't it, for the first test, but at the end of the day, this is a massive opportunity for the sport here. The world champions coming here to play their bitterest rivals. I mean, we're an even bigger rival to Australia than what New Zealand are, aren't we? So it needs somebody there in charge who can really, really push that boat out and really get everybody's attention. We're not just talking the M62 corridor or, the game in Australia. In a few months' time, your team are flying out to Las Vegas to play a game against Leeds Rhinos. Let's get the people in Las Vegas taking notice of an Ashes series, between the two oldest combatants in international rugby league, and I'm just not sure Nigel Wood is the right person to do that. I think what you need is somebody young, energetic, effervescent, and somebody who's going to really be able to get hold of people like this and say, look, this is rugby league. This is what we do really well. And, and I'm like I say, I'm just not sure that we'll get that from Nigel Wood. I mean, like I said, he might surprise me, but I don't see it. I really don't see it.
Yeah, it's interesting you refer to him as a safe pair of hands, because it's such a pivotal time for the game, as so many people are saying, with restructures coming in and this strategic review and IMG and the Ashes coming up. Do we need a safe pair of hands, or do we need someone, as you say, who's energetic and young and effervescent, bringing new ideas to the table? Because I think he's basically dropped himself into a bit of a mess when it concerns the RFL, because he's got so much to untangle. He's got the arguments over the league structure, as I say, will be good, because we're nearly 20 rounds into this season, and we don't yet know for certain whether there's going to be 12 teams or 14 teams next season. So teams can't prepare properly for next season yet until that decision is made, especially the teams like your Toulouse or York, for example, who might be in line to be in the Super League.
I'm hearing is
they don't know.
I mean, what I'm hearing in the press box, I think, is that it's most likely going to be 12 teams next season, and it'll go to 14 teams in 2027. However, don't take that as gospel, but that seems to be the feeling amongst the other journalists in the press box. But then again, I'm only in one press box at a time. There's various others, and other people could be saying other things in the press box. But like I say, in the press box, when I'm in it, whichever one it happens to be, the thought seems to be that it will still be 12 teams next season, and then it'll become 14 in 2027. But of course, the Australians, they still have a vested interest here as well, don't they? And they want a 10-team league. But according to my good friend Gary Carter, he said that they're not interested in a financial investment in Super League. They just want an admin role in it. So I don't know how serious we can take the idea of a 10-team competition with 2 French teams in it. I'm really not sure yet. I would suggest that we will remain at 12 teams for next season. Even if it's just to pacify people who are saying let's have 10 and people who are saying let's have 14. Well, let's stay at 12. It's halfway between the two and let's work it out. But like I say again, we're going over the same ground with Nigel Wood, aren't we? So how much it's going to change and which way it's going to go, I don't know yet.
I think 14 is the best number for Super League, but I think it's sensible at this time of year to keep next season at 12 so that the clubs have a full 12 months to prepare for Super League going to 14 teams. Because especially with the 10 quota players decision coming into effect, you could maybe accommodate those 14 teams now, and it gives you more of a chance of getting different clubs into Super League. But then again, you have to have a reliable promotion and relegation to make it viable as well. Because the way that IMG the way that we're doing the IMG system at the moment is probably going to be putting a lot of clubs off investing.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? IMG, they signed this 12-year contract with Rugby League, didn't they? However, we know contracts these days are not worth the paper they're written on, are they? They can soon be ripped up and discarded, can't they? Whether we go that way and ditch IMG, I don't know. But again, it's one of those questions for Nigel Wood to answer, isn't it? And I genuinely don't know which way he's going to go, because I mean, when Andrew Thurkill attended the fans forum in December, on the day that the takeover was announced, and he was asked, what do you think of IMG? Do you trust them? And he was very much, oof, and it really took some thinking about. And, and I think he knew that he had to be careful with what he said. But, so whether IMG are going to see out this 12 years, I think it's highly unlikely, but I don't know for definite. Again, it's another issue for Rugby League to deal with, and at the moment, I'm just not seeing, because when I go to press conferences each week, there is so much frustration. They were talking about, they were talking about the 10 overseas quota rule for I don't know how many weeks, and interviewing John Cartwright, and you could see it in him and you could hear it in his voice. He was so frustrated. He was waiting because, of course, the clubs are waiting, wondering what to do, what they can and can't do. And you could just see how frustrating it all was. And do we really expect the Rugby Football League and Nigel Wood to take the bull by the horns here and say, right, we're getting rid of IMG or we're keeping IMG? Who knows? But, it's certainly what it says to me is this sport is in desperate need of some real management and, real structure and knowing, because at the moment it looks like the left arm doesn't know what the right arm is doing, doesn't it?
The thing with IMG is they specialise in sort of, they've got a lot of global partners, but I'm not sure, without looking through their entire website, how many British sporting partners they have, because they seem to be basing their model on quite a American/Australian point of view of having marketable franchises. And of course, we've been down the franchise road before and it didn't work out very well. I think it takes a company that understands the sporting market that exists here, because we're a market that has gotten used to promotion and relegation. This sport in the UK needs promotion and relegation to give it any stakes, because if you're a club that's fighting out amongst the bottom of the Super League, then what's the incentive for you to get better if you know that you're going to be there next season anyway?
Well, that's the question, isn't it? I mean, we've had promotion and relegation, we've had franchising, we've had licensing, and I think to be fair to the Rugby Football League, they tried different ways to make this fit, and I think, because we're so up and down about, we want licensing or we want promotion and relegation, they're trying to fit square pegs in round holes, aren't they? It's killing them trying to make these things fit together, and they just won't fit, and I think, like I said, it's the Rugby Football League. They are the people in control of the game. They need to say, right, this is what we're having and this is why we're having it, and whether you like it or not, this is the way it's got to be. And I think that's what it will really take, is for somebody from the RFL. And like I say, again, I don't know if Nigel Wood is the right man to do this, but for somebody to say, right, that's what we're having and this is why we're doing it, and stick to it. And I think after a while, once people get used to whatever that structure is, because they will, you'll get to see the benefits sooner or later, and people will get used to it, and they'll probably get to like it. I mean, nobody liked the idea of Thursday night games, and now we're complaining when there isn't a game on a Thursday night, aren't we? And stuff like that, and it just takes somebody to take the bull by the horns and say, right, this is what we're doing and this is why.
I think to a certain extent, there's a lot of self-preservation going on between the clubs as well, because I think a lot of them are voting in the interest of themselves as opposed to the game as a whole. Because I think going up, them voting for a 14 teams. Them voting for a 14-team Super League is turkeys voting for Christmas, because it means that they're going to get less central distribution, aren't they?
Well, that's it. Yeah, and I mean, the TV money keeps going down every year, and or every new contract anyway. And you just have this broadcaster, we're going to have this broadcast deal, this is what it's going to cost them, and this is how many clubs we're going to have, and this is going to be the structure about promotion and relegation or licensing or whatever. That.
Yeah, it's the TV contract is a whole other discussion in and of itself, because I think Sky pulled quite a big fast one with the last contract negotiation, because they got more content for less money, which someone at Sky was laughing the way to the bank, but someone at the RFL should probably have taken a good long hard look at themselves, especially when there was other broadcasters reportedly interested. You had the likes of BT and DAZN who were interested, and if their interest still stands in 2027, I would say hear them out and give the broadcasting rights to the highest bidder, basically, because you need to be making as much money for the sport as you can.
Well, I mean, this is the thing. Look at the selling point we've got coming up. England against Australia. I mean, come on, it's a huge selling point, and the BBC are all over it, but we don't know what the coverage is going to be like. Hopefully it'll be really good. we'll have to wait and see what we. But it's a massive selling point for the game. And it's like you want to. We've got the two best teams, arguably the two best teams in the world, going hammer and tongs at each other for a 3-match test series. Look, this is what our sport has got to offer for your brand, your broadcasting. What more can we offer you? But at the end of the day, they've also got to think about people's livelihoods, haven't they?
Yeah, I mean, so, in an ideal world, you would want coverage that is comparable to the current British and Irish Lions tour in Australia, wouldn't you? Because they're currently getting quite a lot of coverage on the BBC.
That would be brilliant.
But I think what could help with what could help with that as well is in the old days when Australia used to tour, they used to come over and play like club teams as well, which I think would be an interesting thing to revisit. It's not likely to happen, but rather than just bring them over for the 3 games, have them playing different teams as well. Have them playing maybe a Yorkshire team or a Lancashire team, and see where that takes you.
I do believe. I do believe the RLPA in Australia have said, with the rules, that the players will only play 3 games this time. However, I also believe that obviously the World Cup is in Australia next year, and it wouldn't affect the Australia tour here in 2028, which I do believe could potentially include warm-up games for the visitors against club sides or maybe Yorkshire and Lancashire or anything like that. I don't know how serious that is, at least 2 people, that Australia will be back over here in 2028 and it will have all the trimmings as such.
That would be interesting because it would be really cool to see. I would love to see Australia playing at Craven Park, just as I'm sure that you would love to see Australia play All FC at the MKM. It would be a sort of a bizarre experience for definite, but because it would then offer something for all sorts of fans, because you can take them to all sorts of different places. Have them play like a Championship League One super team or something, so that everybody gets involved. The important thing with the Ashes as well is we've sold out 2 tests already, which is brilliant, but we've got to make sure that the product on the pitch backs up the ticket sales.
There is nothing wrong with the products on the pitch. The players are absolutely highly, finely tuned athletes, and, they have no respect for their own safety and their own bodies, do they? There's nothing wrong with the products on the pitch. It's what's going on off it that needs sorting out. And, but, if we can promote this Ashes series correctly and really get people's attention, then hope.
Yeah, it's going to be a big test for rugby league in this country as to how successful the Ashes is. I think it would be great to come away with a series victory, because I think it would show how far that we've come as a nation. I'm not sure if it's likely, but I would like to say that we win at least 1 test. I would hope that we're going to the 3rd test at 1-1, because I've got tickets it's for the third test, and I would hate for it to be a dead rubber. But I would like to think that we've got at least one win against the Australians in us.
Yeah, I mean, you would like to think so, but who knows? Australia, they're certainly in a bit of disarray at the moment, aren't they? Because obviously the coach has gone because he's taken over the new franchise in the NRL. The replacement, the one who was touted to be his replacement, has turned it down and said, no, I'm not interested. So, they've got to move on to plan C, which you don't normally associate that with Australia, do you? Especially coming into an Ashes series, you expect them to be organised and know exactly what's what, and coming over here in absolutely the right frame of mind. And I'm just not sure that that's the case at the moment because, it's because, Mal Meninga, he drove this thing. He was the one who said, I really want a tour to England, an Ashes tour. And then he's turned around and said, oh, by the way, no, thank you very much. So there's certainly a bit of unsettlement, shall we say, for Australia. And that could make them just that bit more vulnerable to England. I still think they'll win the Ashes, but I would like to think that we could give them a real good run for their money on each and every game.
Here's an interesting idea for next week's episode. How about we go away this week and we come back next week with our preferred England side for the Ashes series? Our 1 to 17, so the 13 and 4 subs, and we both go through our dream Ashes lineup for the end of this season. How does that sound?
Yeah, that's fine by me. Yeah, I'm happy
to
do that.
And do that next week. So we'll move on to the final topic I've got down to talk about this week, and that's the referees. We always seem to come back every week to something to do with referees. This weekend was during the Castleford-Warrington game. There was a moment in the second half where Alex Mellor did a brilliant tackle to stop, I think it was Thewlis scoring a try, but he ended up taking him high. A penalty was given as opposed to a penalty try, which we both agree was the right decision, and he was sent to the sin bin for it. Sam Burgess, being the gracious loser that he always is, gave his press conference at the end and said he was confused. But yeah, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this, Ian.
It was absolutely the right decision. It was not a penalty try in a million years. For a penalty try to be given, right, the referee or the video referee in this case has to be of the opinion that a try would definitely have been scored without the foul play. Why he couldn't say that is the fact that Mellor has hit him high, but at the end of the day, he's there to make a tackle. It's like I said to you, if he was chasing a kick, you'd only say, it'd be a penalty try because he would have definitely scored because there was no opposition player there to stop him scoring. People have said, if he's not there to make that high tackle, then he would have scored. Yeah, absolutely he would have scored if Mellor was not there. But the fact is that Mellor was there. And he, when you look at his action, yes, it's a high tackle. Fine, we see them in every game. But he was absolutely, he was concentrated on making sure Thewlis could not ground that ball over the line. In other words, the referee could not say that Thewlis would have scored because Mellor was there, and he stopped him grounding the ball. And he got a yellow card for the high tackle. Fine, got no problem with that. But if they'd have given a penalty try, I would have had a real problem with that, because there is no way in the world, not in a million years, could they say that Thewlis would have scored. Because at the end of the day, he was, Mellor was there, and he made absolutely sure Thewlis could not get that ball to the ground over the try line. And that's why it's not a penalty try. I know the penalty try is a rare thing these days. However, it does happen now and again. But when that tackle came in from Mellor, and you take out the high element of the tackle. He's been sin binned for the high tackle, but you take out the high element of the tackle. He's still going to be there, trying to stop Thewlis from scoring, and take away the high element. He's still there. He's still making that tackle, and he's making sure that ball does not get grounded in the Castleford in-goal area. So, I don't think there's much more that young Mellor could do, really, to make sure that was not a try and it was not a penalty try. All right, he's hit him high, but he's still there to make that tackle, and he made absolutely the right tackle. I mean, without the high element of the tackle, it's a textbook tackle. It really is. It's a perfect tackle to stop a try being scored. So that it was not a penalty try, it definitely wouldn't have been a penalty try, because Thewlis would definitely not have scored.
No, it's basically because the high contact was a secondary element. Mellor was always going to make that tackle, whether he caught him high or not. It is irrelevant. So the foul play didn't stop him scoring. Yeah. The tackle stopped him scoring. So therefore, it can't be a penalty try. I mean, in my days, I was a referee when I was a teenager, and
if he had been stopped, if he had been stopped, because of the high tackle, I could understand that. But the fact was that Mellor did the tackle afterwards, and he made sure that the ball couldn't get to the ground. And people are saying, oh, well, if he wasn't there to make that high tackle, he would have scored. Well, yeah, of course he would have done, because there would have been no defender there. But you can't. And he affected a very good tackle to stop the ball being grounded. Yes, he hit him high and he got a yellow card for it. If they'd have given a penalty try, it'd have been Warrington having their cake, and that wouldn't have been fair. I can understand why Warrington fans would maybe say, that it should be a penalty try, but at the same time, I can definitely say, it was absolutely the right decision, because there is no way Thewlis would have scored that try due to that tackle.
It was a fantastic tackle. He just, because Thewlis was losing height, which is why Mellor caught him high, and the yellow card was fair enough. But you say definitely wasn't a penalty try. But I tell you what, I'm a little bit bored of every weekend there being some discussion of a controversial refereeing decision, even though this weekend it wasn't necessarily controversial because it was the correct call. It's just some people how the rules are written and applied to the game. They just sort of know an idea of what the rules are and not what they actually are. But I'm so bored of seeing so many great games all coming down to
Yeah.
to just being discussed with the referee. It's really disappointing.
Yeah, I completely get that. But, I mean, this is why we also love the sport. We love the controversy that goes with it, don't we? And we love, to debate things. And it's great that it promotes healthy debate, and, if any Warrington fans out there want to come to me, or fans of any club want to come to me and say, you're wrong what you're saying about that Thewlis no try penalty try, then by all means get in touch with us at the page, and I will gladly debate it with them. But for me, it was the wrong decision. But there's other people out there who will disagree with me, and I'm sure that there's almost equally as many people who will agree with me that it was the right decision not to give a penalty try. But there we go. That's why we love the sport, don't we?
Yeah. So we've got a somewhat reduced schedule of games to look forward to this weekend, with it being a split round. Before we say goodbye, so we have this Thursday Wakefield hosting Leeds. I believe I've gone for a Wakefield win there, and you've gone for a Leeds win. I think both teams will be bitten on the backside by their own inconsistency come the end of the season. I think Wakefield have shown some real promise, but just can't seem to string a wins together, basically. And Leeds are the same. They can bounce from having a brilliant win one week and losing the next two. So that'll be an interesting game at the DIY Kitchen Stadium. Friday night sees Wigan host Catalans. We've both gone for a Wigan win there. I think as weak as Wigan look in comparison to Wigan of old, I think Catalan are in a little bit more of a shambolic state at the moment, unfortunately for the Catalan club. They're apparently supposed to be unveiling Joel Tompkins as their permanent coach tomorrow, but we shall see whether that happens or not. And then on Saturday, the third of the split round is Hull FC at home to Huddersfield. You might yet be celebrating another home win there, Ian.
Who knows? I mean, the way Hull have been in recent years, they've gone and done a real good job at Wigan, and then they'll probably go and get beat at home by Huddersfield. The way things work out for us at the moment, and the way that this season is, I absolutely wouldn't be surprised to see Huddersfield turn up and beat us. I really wouldn't, but I hope they don't. But whichever way, I'll be there getting coverage, so watch out for that.
Yeah. Just before we go as well, I'd like to send best wishes out to Ryan Mason of the Widnes Vikings, who sustained what looked to be quite a serious head and neck injury in the game against Doncaster on Sunday due to a high tackle. The good news out of Widnes this morning is the scans have shown there's no fracture in his neck. He's come away with a concussion, some strained neck muscles. But all the best to Ryan Mason and all the people at Widnes for a fast and speedy recovery. The game was suspended for more than an hour.
Yes.
It was very, very, very worrying scenes, I'm sure, for Widnes fans there. But all the best to Ryan Mason and Widnes.
Serious injury.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's something the game always does really well, is dealing with serious injury like that. So
yeah, and we tend to come out as really good supporters of players that have got them as well. I remember a few years ago when Mossy Massot had his
round of applause to everybody who's dealt with that as well.
Yeah. It must have been a really worrying hour or so for his teammates, and even for the opposition. I know that it was done by a high tackle by Edin Gebby of Doncaster, but I have no doubt that it wasn't intentional for him to go into that tackle wanting to hurt him. So it must be difficult for Edin Gebby to see that as well. But all the best to Ryan Mason, all the best to Widnes and everyone there. I shall be keeping an eye out for updates on his condition and sharing them on the page. But thank you very much, Ian, for this, our first episode. I shall see you again next week. Hope you've enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you all for tuning in, and we shall see you again next week. Hope you've enjoyed this first episode of the Gerrim Onside Podcast. It's goodbye from me, Nathan, and I'll let Ian say his own goodbyes. Can you hear me there, Ian?
Can we get a shot of Jackson before we go?
Oh, yes, of course. We shall get a shot of Jackson, our podcast mascot. My guide dog, there he is, resting his head. There he is, look. He's frequently accompanies me to Rovers games. So it's bye-bye from Jackson as well. And hope you've enjoyed this first episode. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
League, of course.